What did you think of the horrendous interview that Quincy Jones did, where he said that you were the biggest pain in the ass during the We Are the World?
The jewelry was a pain in the ass. I didn't realize it. I've always been polite to him, though, and I never would just say to him that I hate the song. I told my manager that. He shouldn't have told the guy.
Recording?
And then I made the worst mistake. I said, listen, I'll put you right next to Michael.
Oh, and he didn't want to be next to Michael?
Done.
Which artists from We Are the World struggled to get along and who ultimately didn't make it? Originally recorded in January 1985 by the supergroup USA for Africa to support famine relief, the single brought together a wide range of legendary voices. Along with immense talent came strong personalities and even stronger egos. What unfolded became one of the defining nights of 80s pop, showcasing music's power to unite people globally. At the same time, the tensions, rivalries, and a few notable exclusions became apparent. The idea first came from songwriter and activist Harry Belafonte after he saw disturbing news footage of starving children. Moved to act, he began reaching out to major artists in December 1984. One of his earliest contacts was Ken Cragen, who managed many of the top charting American acts of the decade. A simple phone call between Belafonte and Cragen was enough to spark the entire movement. Soon after, Cragen received the call that pushed things forward. Belafonte had also contacted Lionel Richie and emphasized that while Live Aid was happening in Europe, nothing similar existed in the US. He framed it as a pressing cultural moment that needed action. When Belafonte raised the issue directly, the response was immediate. "Let me circle back to you," came the reply. The very next call went to Quincy Jones. Quincy didn't hesitate and agreed they needed to act. Conversations quickly expanded to include Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder, and momentum began to build. Once a small group came together, it became clear something powerful could happen.
If 2 or 3 or 4 of us are gathered together, sounds like a good prayer here, then we can get something done.
The recording was scheduled to take place after the American Music Awards, one of the biggest nights in music. Meanwhile, Cragen and his team worked relentlessly to assemble the lineup. Using the Billboard charts as a guide, he committed to securing at least 2 artists each night. At the time, Michael Jackson was dominating globally thanks to Thriller, making him essential to the project's success. Once it was confirmed that Jackson and Lionel Richie would write the song and Quincy Jones would produce it, the scale of the event became undeniable. Even so, Jackson initially hesitated about participating as a performer. Concerned about overexposure following intense media attention in the Victory Tour, he questioned whether it was the right move. Eventually, he was persuaded by the potential impact and the positive message it would send. Another turning point came when Bruce Springsteen agreed to join. Through his manager John Landau, Cragen made a compelling case about the project's importance. From that moment on, interest surged, and invitations quickly turned into a flood of responses. In fact, demand became so high that many artists had to be turned away. Organizers aimed not only for current chart toppers, but also for iconic voices from earlier generations. Artists like Donna Summer and Barbra Streisand were strongly pursued. Still, assembling the final group proved complicated, with scheduling conflicts and personal choices shaping the outcome. Although Bob Dylan was confirmed, Cragen later admitted he wished Joan Baez and John Denver had also been included. Reflecting on the moment, he noted how the influence of 1960s artists like Dylan and Baez had carried forward into a new era. What began as seeds of activism had now grown into a major cultural movement. That sense of legacy added deeper meaning to the project. As for writing the song, the early stages felt relaxed due to the lack of a deadline. However, everything changed just 2 weeks before recording, when there was still no finished track.
Cragen calls on the phone and says, Bruce is in. Dylan's in. Dylan, you mean? Well, Ray's coming. Ray is coming. Oh. So all of a sudden, we went from just la 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 to panic.
Despite its humanitarian purpose, underlying tensions nearly derailed everything at the last minute. The divide between rock and pop artists, along with differing attitudes towards commercial success, created friction. On the eve of the American Music Awards rehearsal, concerns were raised by a manager representing one of the rock performers, threatening to disrupt the entire effort.
From the list of participating artists that they showed me, it was just unbelievable. going in, I felt, no, they're not all going to show up. No.
Imagine, I guess I was 31 or 32, and I knew then that this was the career event of my life, right?
Wow.
And now, certainly 39 years later, it still is. So that's pretty incredible.
I mean, when you look at that photo of everybody, aren't you like, wow, I can't, I mean, it is pretty wild that you were all in one room.
We didn't know whether Cindy was coming. Because at the show, I said to Cindy, are you coming? And she said, I spoke to my boyfriend, and he says, he doesn't think it's a hit. And I said, don't miss the session.
You know what? I thought, I heard we say feed the world, and I kind of got so into that, we are the world, it reminded me, it was catchy though.
Yeah.
I was honored to freaking sing it.
Craig recalls how Eddie Murphy's manager turned him down, but he couldn't quite remember what excuse Madonna gave. Even though one manager insists the future queen of pop got an invite, her collaborator Nile Rodgers says she wasn't asked at all, and she didn't take it well. So in the end, Madonna didn't participate in the recording of We Are the World, which felt like a bit of a snub since everyone was already in Los Angeles for the American Music Awards. Rodgers mentioned they had all gone out together, and he could tell she felt hurt, especially given her connections to Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. He was heading to the session just to hang out and could sense her disappointment. Coming off her debut and the massive success of Like a Virgin, Madonna was everywhere at the time. She attended the awards like everyone else and saw the buzz building around what was happening afterward. Logistically, she could have joined, but it's believed organizers were choosing between her and Cyndi Lauper. At that point, Lauper arguably had the edge with hits like Girls Just Wanna Have Fun and Time After Time, and she had already proven she could hold her own among top-tier vocalists. Craig's associate, Harriet Sternberg, later revealed, I wanted Madonna, but Ken wanted Cyndi. That decision stuck with Madonna. Later that year, at Live Aid, she performed her set but refused to join the finale performance of the charity single. Her reasoning was simple. If she wasn't good enough for the original, she wasn't coming back for the ending. She performed, briefly appeared with the Thompson twins, and then left right after.
Gone.
Why did it have to be Cyndi Lauper or Madonna?
It's probably one of the most interesting questions in the world, because you have to have an identifiable voice. And for whatever reason, it was just Cyndi had that wow, 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 wow,
Right.
That was it. And so
But you couldn't have both of them?
It's hard.
You guys made a mistake.
It might have been a mistake. Still, there's also the belief that everything unfolded exactly as it was meant to. The lineup that night felt almost guided, like it came together the only way it could. In the end, USA for Africa pulled off something close to a miracle. That said, the biggest controversy wasn't Madonna, it was Prince. Co-writer Lionel Richie had envisioned a symbolic duet between Prince and Michael Jackson to show unity during a humanitarian crisis, especially since their rivalry was so public. After the success of Purple Rain, Prince had become a powerhouse, rivaling Jackson's dominance, and the media framed it as a battle for pop royalty. Naturally, organizers wanted Prince involved, especially since he was expected to win big that night at the awards. His name was even printed in early plans because Quincy Jones imagined both rivals sharing a microphone. But despite the invitation, Prince didn't show. Reports say he didn't want to be in a room crowded with that many people. Known for his perfectionism and strong artistic control, Prince likely wasn't interested in contributing to a song he didn't help create, especially just to add a few vocals and stand in a choir. At his own shows, he'd even stop mid-performance to call out off-key singing, so the session might have felt frustrating to him. Richie later shared that he spent a long time on the phone trying to convince him. Prince asked if he could record separately, which
I would love to tell you that's different from anything else he's ever done. Richie continued, quote, that's just Prince. Of course, he's not going to be at a group of singers at the time when
As
we
for
wanted
how
to
the
show up.
singers were paired or grouped, it wasn't random. Those decisions were carefully assigned by Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, and a small team. After all, every artist had their own vocal range and key, so organizing them required precision to make everything work seamlessly.
What really made it special was the mission to find the perfect key so each singer could perform at their very best. Then Stevie walks in, suggesting they try something in another language. No, not that, something else entirely. Moments like that kept happening, like when Bob Dylan felt too shy to sing alone. So Stevie Wonder steps in and starts coaching Bob on how to sound like Bob Dylan. "We are the world, we are the children," he demonstrates, and Bob goes, "All right, I think I can do that." Bob stands at the mic, unsure, while Stevie plays and guides him through the phrasing. Stevie repeats the line again, and Bob nods, goes back, and absolutely nails it. He just needed that push. Watching Stevie teach Bob Dylan to sing like himself, that was unforgettable. At the time, you didn't even know you'd get a solo. So what did that feel like, standing in front of everyone? Naturally, it was frightening. Then Quincy calls out, "Smelly, come here." That's what they called Michael, and tells him to sing the line for Huey. Michael sings it once, then tells Huey to try it. Huey does, and Quincy says, "You've got it." From that moment on, the nerves kicked in hard, completely nerve-wracking. In the end, quite a few big names didn't get solo lines. Harry Belafonte, Bette Midler, Smokey Robinson, and many others. But surprisingly, no one seemed upset about it. That just wasn't the vibe. To be fair, most people already knew ahead of time whether they'd get a solo or just be part of the chorus. No one was blindsided. Still, there were moments when it felt like the whole thing might fall apart. Fatigue hit hard, especially around 4 a.m. Springsteen didn't leave until the very last piece was recorded, around 8 in the morning. It was an all-night push. Looking back, a couple of major names were noticeably missing, Prince and the Donna. It may have looked organized from the outside, but remember, there was no internet back then. Getting the song out, having artists hear it, and securing commitments quickly was incredibly difficult. The truth about Prince? He was at Carlos and Charlie's, and honestly, here's what really happened. He said he'd come, but only if he could record in a separate room.
And then I made the worst mistake. I said, "Listen, I'll put you right next to Michael."
Oh, and he didn't want to be next to Michael?
Done.
Oh.
Done. So no, I said, "Prince, are you there?" He said, "I'll do a guitar solo."
Oh, really?
And then that was Prince.
Why do you think he didn't want?
Wait, really? So why do you think he avoided standing next to Michael? It wasn't just Michael. He didn't want to stand beside any of us, honestly, because Prince kept to himself, preferring his own isolated space. That wasn't how we operated, though. We had everyone lined up together, from Paul Simon to Bob Dylan. So yeah, egos had to be checked at the door somewhere. Alan Light's book, Let's Go Crazy, Revolution guitarist Wendy Melvoin claimed he skipped it because he wanted to maintain a certain image, felt the song was terrible, and didn't want to be around everyone involved. As noted in the 2024 documentary, The Greatest Night in Pop, Sheila E. was invited, and because of her connection to Prince, organizers hoped she could persuade him to show up. She even urged him, telling him how great it was, while he was relaxing at Carlos and Charlie's after winning 3 awards and performing Purple Rain at the AMAs. Craig recalled that Sheila E. made a real effort to bring him in. Prince did call during the session and asked Quincy if he could come lay down a guitar track, but Quincy told him they had already finished the basics. When it became clear she wouldn't get a standout solo, Sheila chose to leave, feeling her presence was being used mainly because of her link to Prince. Part of why Prince stayed away was his habit of controlling every element in the studio. He preferred doing everything himself rather than sharing space with other stars. Instead of attending, he went out to a nightclub, and later his bodyguards assaulted paparazzi, which ended up making headlines in the LA Times. So the part originally intended for him was sung by Huey Lewis, while Prince spent the evening out on Sunset. Rolling Stone reported that some viewed his absence as selfish, though he was open to contributing, just not to that particular track. Later, feeling uneasy about missing it, he wrote the B-side, Hello, explaining that paparazzi interference had kept him away. When an album was later planned, Prince quickly submitted a song. Despite skipping We Are the World, he wasn't indifferent to suffering. He gave generously to charity, often without publicity. For instance, in 2011, he donated $1 million to the Harlem Children's Zone, deeply impressing its CEO, Jeffrey Canada, who expressed heartfelt gratitude for the gesture.
Though some misunderstood or criticized his decision, many who knew him saw him not as selfish, but a unique and visionary artist who cared in his own way. In interviews, Prince later said he felt intimidated by being in a room filled with artists he admired. Quincy Jones eventually said he respected Prince's choice, recognizing he simply worked differently, even if he didn't join the group performance. That same independence showed again at the 1995 American Music Awards, where Prince appeared on stage with Quincy and others during a performance of We Are the World, but instead of singing, he stood at the front with a lollipop. When the song won a Grammy, it marked a powerful moment, proof of what could happen when top-tier talent united for a cause. There was a sense among those involved that they were helping spark a meaningful shift in the world. Many felt the project symbolized a chance for people to become more aware and compassionate toward others. Participants believed the experience might lead to saving lives, maybe even thousands, and hoped it would make generosity feel natural rather than trendy. There was pride in how the music industry came together during a time of global need, responding with action instead of indifference. At the time, there was even optimism that they could significantly reduce world hunger, that if enough people cared, others would follow, and communities would start helping one another on a global scale. Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson expressed gratitude for being chosen to write the song, while also praising Quincy Jones.
We are so proud to be a part of an industry of people that in a time when the world is in need of helping each other, this music industry of ours responded.
I'd like to thank God, and I'd like to say thank you for choosing Lionel and myself to write We Are the World. I thank Quincy Jones, who is the greatest producer to me.
One of the biggest impacts was raising awareness about famine in Ethiopia and other parts of Africa, encouraging people to give from the heart. The song's success was massive, raising over $80 million, equivalent to about $214 million today, and inspired future charity efforts led by musicians. It proved that artists from different backgrounds could unite and use their influence for humanitarian good. Still, beyond the fundraising and awards, questions remained about how effective USA for Africa truly was on the ground. What tangible results came from all that money? Did it create lasting change, or were some funds lost to corruption and mismanagement? At least some of the proceeds were used directly. Over $3 million went toward food and medical supplies. Shipments were sent out with support from figures like Marlon Jackson, while Lionel Richie and Diana Ross were present to see one of the aid planes depart from Los Angeles. The USA for Africa Charitable Foundation was created by Ken Cragen, who played a key role in assembling the project. As an artist manager, Cragen took charge of organizing everything, despite having no background in international aid, especially on such a massive scale. After We Are the World was released, it took time for royalties to come in, which allowed Cragen and his team to prepare their next steps. By June 1985, the first USA for Africa cargo plane loaded with food, medicine, and clothing set off for Ethiopia and Sudan. Along the way, it stopped in New York, where 15,000 T-shirts were added to the shipment. The departure drew significant media attention, while Harry Belafonte visited Sudan that same month to represent the artists involved in the charity effort. Soon after the initiative gained momentum, criticism of USA for Africa and broader efforts like Live Aid began to emerge. One major concern was that celebrity campaigns simplified the Ethiopian crisis, presenting the famine as purely a natural disaster. In Do They Know It's Christmas by Band Aid, a lyric suggested a land where nothing grows and no rain falls, reinforcing the idea that drought alone caused the famine. In reality, the causes were far more complex. The famine resulted from a mix of poverty, drought, flawed agricultural policies, and critically, the use of hunger as a weapon during conflict. After the Ethiopian Revolution of 1974, a military regime known as the Derg took control and established a Marxist-Leninist state under military rule. Various opposition groups, ranging from communist to anti-communist factions, soon formed armed resistance against the Soviet-backed Derg. Over time, the regime used military force and campaigns like the Ethiopian Red Terror to suppress dissent. Under Mengistu Haile Mariam, the government introduced collectivist policies, including nationalization of land and industry. One of the regime's main slogans promoted land redistribution to farmers, transferring property from landlords to those working it. While it appeared equitable in theory, poor management, corruption, and widespread resentment toward the regime undermined its effectiveness. Combined with ongoing warfare and separatist movements in regions like Eritrea and Tigray, agricultural productivity dropped sharply. Military strategies further worsened the crisis. According to Elizabeth H. Bradley of Yale University, crops, livestock, and food supplies were deliberately destroyed during offensives as part of a scorched earth approach to weaken opposition forces. She also noted that heavy military spending diverted resources that could have helped prevent or reduce famine conditions. Although Ethiopia had long experienced periods of drought, the mid-1980s crisis reached an unprecedented scale, threatening millions. International relief efforts were heavily influenced by foreign policy, with U.S. aid coordinated through the National Security Council. The Reagan administration was reluctant to provide strong support, partly due to Ethiopia's alignment with the Soviet Union. Since gaining influence in Ethiopia, the Soviets had strengthened their strategic position, supplying the Mengistu government with weapons, including chemical stockpiles, and billions of dollars in military aid, along with thousands of advisors. A classified White House report from May 5, 1984, revealed that U.S. officials were aware of the worsening famine, but chose limited involvement for political reasons. The administration also accused Ethiopian authorities of diverting U.S. grain to fund military purchases. Global awareness of the famine grew significantly after reports by Michael Burke aired on BBC in October 1984. His coverage depicted a catastrophic, almost biblical famine, showing harrowing images of widespread starvation, including among children. Even before the era of social media and online news, those broadcasts reached a massive global audience, airing on more than 400 television stations worldwide. These shocking accounts sparked massive outrage and pushed musician Bob Geldof to take initiative and organize what became Band Aid, despite lacking a full grasp of the geopolitical forces shaping the crisis and the tightly controlled reporting under the Mengistu government. Following the landmark success of Band Aid's Do They Know It's Christmas, which raised over $24 million, Harry Belafonte suggested a new campaign, believing African Americans should take a stronger role rather than leaving the effort to British artists. Once again, this push came with limited awareness of how deeply the Ethiopian government influenced the crisis, though some argued that assigning blame mattered less than addressing the suffering itself. At the time, countless Ethiopians faced extreme hardship, and outside intervention became necessary to prevent further loss of life. In reality, aid does not always reach those who need it most, as it can be manipulated as a tool of conflict, ultimately deepening instability in already fragile regions. By 1986, a controversial Spin magazine article attempted to scrutinize Bob Geldof and Live Aid, raising concerns about the consequences of directing massive aid into a nation governed by a harsh dictatorship. The article questioned the flow of funds, asking where the money was going and whether it was truly helping those in need. It claimed that Mengistu, previously stalled in war, used Western funds to acquire advanced Soviet weapons, transforming Ethiopia, then among the world's poorest nations, into a military power with one of Africa's strongest armies.
Meanwhile, Band-Aid Trust shipped food and medicine, only to discover there was no reliable system to distribute supplies once they arrived in Ethiopian ports. Because the Marxist government refused to redirect vehicles from military campaigns and resettlement efforts, most aid remained stuck in port cities like Assab and Massawa. At the same time, military shipments from Soviet vessels were prioritized, leaving massive quantities of food to spoil along the Red Sea coast. In some cases, aid delivered through Live Aid was seized by the government and used either to feed troops or barter for weapons from the Soviet Union. Additionally, Mengistu blocked aid from crossing into rebel-held regions such as Tigray, Eritrea, and northern Wollo, where a majority of famine victims were located. Political writer Bonnie Holcomb pointed out that humanitarian aid, though well-intentioned, became entangled in efforts to reshape Ethiopian society. A clear example occurred on October 25, 1985, when Ethiopian soldiers stormed a relief center in Koram, one of the largest feeding sites in Wollo province. As troops entered, tens of thousands fled in panic, while hundreds were captured at gunpoint and forced onto trucks. Those taken included farmers, women, and children who were separated from loved ones and either conscripted into the military or relocated to distant state-controlled farms. Holcomb ultimately argued that halting aid might save more lives, emphasizing that both aid and famine are deeply political issues rather than purely humanitarian concerns. Because of the controversies and limited effectiveness surrounding Live Aid efforts, USA for Africa was forced to rethink its strategy moving forward. Marty Rogel, executive director of USA for Africa, described the situation as a difficult dilemma, noting that even carefully planned aid efforts came with unavoidable complications. He explained that while the organization tried to focus on strictly humanitarian uses, there were no simple solutions, only tough decisions. Although many donors believed they were addressing immediate famine relief, the organization shifted within a year toward long-term programs aimed at building self-sufficiency. Ken Cragen later explained that spending everything at once might save lives temporarily, but it would only serve as a short-term fix rather than a lasting solution. As fundraising efforts exceeded expectations, organizers were stunned by the scale, watching contributions climb far beyond initial projections. Even attempts to wind down the campaign failed as donations kept arriving, giving the movement a sense of ongoing momentum. In hindsight, Cragen noted that experts predicted meaningful change in Africa would take decades even with such global involvement. Ultimately, the initiative evolved to include long-term strategies like family planning and agricultural development, funding more than 70 recovery and development projects across 7 African nations.
Initiatives like these focused on support for agriculture, fishing, water systems, manufacturing, and reforestation. Beyond Ethiopia, training efforts also reached African nations such as Mozambique, Senegal, Chad, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, and Mali. Criticism of USA for Africa and Live Aid, however, went beyond how funds were used and questioned the narrative they spread about Africa and its people. This legacy continues to reinforce a dominant image of a helpless continent defined by poverty, dependence, and a lack of agency. USA for Africa unintentionally became a symbol of a development model driven by the West's urge to diagnose and solve the problems of poorer nations, often assuming money alone is the answer. In 2021, the global development sector sent $58.4 billion to Africa, and over the past 3 decades, an estimated $1.2 trillion in aid has flowed to the continent. The highly publicized fundraising style of We Are the World promoted a broad call to help Africa, not just famine-stricken regions, and in doing so, cast the entire continent under a single narrative of despair. This perception discouraged trade and foreign investment, while creating the illusion of vast financial impact, even though the actual sums were relatively small compared to the scale of Africa's diverse economies. William Ruto captured this sentiment clearly, stating that Africa seeks partnership with the global community, not charity or handouts. Although the messaging of USA for Africa had its flaws, the use of celebrity influence successfully mobilized Americans to donate, act, and engage with global issues. It brought attention to distant nations and humanized people living in unfamiliar cultures. Still, despite these efforts, mortality remained high after aid began arriving, as the Ethiopian Civil War resulted in at least 1.4 million deaths, around 1 million from famine and the rest from violence. In 1987, the Derg dissolved itself and formed the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia under the Workers' Party in an attempt to retain control. By the late 1980s, the Soviet Union reduced its support, leaving the government vulnerable to advancing rebel forces. The regime ultimately fell in May 1991, and its leader fled to Zimbabwe, where he still resides, despite being convicted of genocide by an Ethiopian court for the deaths of around 2 million people, largely during the 1983 to 1985 famine. Today, USA for Africa continues to operate, funded mainly by royalties from We Are the World. While the organization has never disclosed exact figures on those helped, one powerful account came through BBC News after the death of Michael Jackson in 2009, illustrating the cultural impact during Ethiopia's darkest period. The man recalled living in Addis Ababa during a devastating drought and famine, where sickness and death were widespread. He explained that global aid reached them, and he was among those who directly benefited from it. The wheat flour distributed to victims differed from what was normally available, and people used it to bake a unique kind of bread. That bread became locally known as Michael bread, named in honor of the artist, and was remembered for its softness and taste. For those who endured such hardship, experiences like that remain unforgettable. He added that anyone who lived in Addis Ababa during that time would recognize the name, and it is something he will carry with him for the rest of his life.